Welcome to the ADHD Women's Wellbeing podcast. I'm Kate Moore-Youssef, and I'm a wellbeing and lifestyle coach, EFT practitioner, mum to 4 kids, and passionate about helping more women to understand and accept their amazing ADHD brains. After speaking to many women just like me, and probably you, I know there is a need for more health and lifestyle support for women newly diagnosed with ADHD. In these conversations, you'll learn from insightful guests, hear new findings, and discover powerful perspectives and lifestyle tools to enable you to live your most fulfilled, calm, and purposeful life wherever you are on your ADHD journey. Here's today's episode. I have a wonderful guest I'm so happy to invite back onto the podcast. We last spoke quite a long time ago, right at the very beginning of the inception of the podcast, and she is back now with a new book. We've got Dr. Tamara Rosier here, and Dr. Tamara has been a college administrator, a professor, a leadership consultant, a high school teacher, a business owner, and an ADHD coach. And through all these varied experiences, she has gained invaluable insights into ADHD and its impact on individuals' lives. And as the founder of the ADHD Centre of West Michigan, Dr. Rosier guides a dedicated team of coaches, therapists, and speech pathologists in assisting people, parents, and families as they develop a deep understanding of themselves and acquire practical skills to navigate life with ADHD. Her brilliant book, Your Brain's Not Broken, which I use all the time, and now her brand new book, You, Me, and Our ADHD Family, offer practical strategies for addressing the potent emotional dimensions of living with ADHD. Welcome, Tamara.
It's great to be here. You've done great things with this podcast. Congratulations.
It's been going a while. Yeah. You came on really at the very beginning, and I thank you. You put some trust and faith in me, and we've been going ever since. It's been a bit of a journey. And like I said, you know, your book, and it's here right now, is still being used all the time. Your Brain's Not Broken, which came out a few years ago. And now you have this brand new book, which just sounds perfect for so many people who I know, I work with, who are struggling, who are discovering their own neurodivergence while also parenting, or perhaps they are realizing they're married to someone who are neurodivergent. Right. And all of a sudden, these like epiphanies are happening all over the show. But on a daily basis, we are struggling. We're struggling with the emotions and the moods and the behavior and the impact that has on our marriages and family dynamics. It's so deeply rooted. And I think for you to have written this book is very timely and so needed. Tell me a little bit about what came from your first book of Your Brain's Not Broken and how you moved into this new one about families.
Yes. So Your Brain's Not Broken. I think I said way back in the way, I'm super corny. So just a warning to all your listeners, but this is very corny. But I was meeting so many clients who were hurting, who were coming just to me going, I feel so ashamed and stupid and I hate myself. And I kept saying to them, your brain's not broken. You just don't understand how it works. And so I wrote Your Brain's Not Broken as a love letter to all the clients I will never meet. And I'll be really honest, I was hoping it'd sell 5,000 copies. Right now it's sold over 65,000 copies. And it's been translated into 3 other languages. And so I am so grateful that love letter is getting out just to tell people you're okay. You're okay. You're just walking and you're just strutting to a different beat and it's okay. So that was the heart behind Your Brain's Not Broken. And I did try to combine recent research with how the brain works and just letting people kind of get to know especially the emotional side of their brain.
Yeah.
So,
and it was very powerful, and it was to have that psychoeducation for people to actually understand, and all the analogies that you've used in that book. I always refer back to what you say about the butler and, borrowing someone else's executive functioning and all these different things.
Yeah.
I always refer back to it to help my clients understand how they can help themselves, but also to process everything. And now I think what you're doing with your new book, and which is called You, Me, and Our ADHD Family, is bringing harmony where I think there's been so much dysfunction and chaos
Yes.
and
Yes.
balance, because I know from growing up in a family with a huge amount of ADHD, and now I'm parenting with my own ADHD and children with ADHD. It's not easy. It's really not easy.
It's not. So, just a quick thing about Your Brain's Not Broken. There's a workbook that's coming out that will be released in January. And I just signed the contract for Your Brain's Not Broken, the teen edition. So, my new project is the teen edition. So I have to figure that out because I'm super old and I'm writing to super young, but we'll figure it out.
I love what
So,
you're portraying just now. Is like this ADHD kind of constant productivity
no.
and ambition. And like, I've just finished just saying that you literally just had a launch last night, and already there's like other
Okay,
books and
you're right. Yes. Yeah. Well, and keeping busy is almost like a hobby for me. It's not I'm not doing it for achievement or success. It's just I kind of start a book with, I wonder if anyone else is having this problem. So I wrote You, Me, and Our ADHD Family because you know this, ADHD runs in families. So if I have ADHD, my kids might have had ADHD, one of my parents had ADHD probably. You know what I mean? The emotional dysregulation in families is really a threat to harmony, to just emotional health overall. And so, in the book, I'm quite honest with how I grew up. I grew up in a very emotionally dysfunctional home. It took me a long time to grow and heal. And I had kind of have a painful story. And I don't get into it too deeply, but my upbringing was rough. And, my dad actually disowned me. And I actually talk about that in the end of the book because sometimes people only have either you have to agree with me or I can't live with you kind of thing. So, families, it's so difficult because if one person is emotionally dysregulated, other people kind of pick it up. It's like a virus, right? And this book isn't a parenting book at all. It's for anyone who has ADHD who goes, gosh, I'm also related to people. How do I relate to people? And so I write a lot about that. I write about the nervous system. So the first part of the book is it begins with you. In other words, get your own stuff together before you start talking with family. And don't talk with family if you don't have your stuff together. Meaning, like, if you're angry that day, if you're trying to pick a fight, now's not the time. Let's really work on healthy relationships. So we have to work on you. The second part of the book is called Welcome to the Goat Rodeo. And the rodeo is all about kind of the family life. And you have family, ADHD families are funny, but when one person turns sour, usually for us it's in a car or someone's hungry, right?
Oh, yeah.
It seeps through the family. And so we talk about what to do in those situations.
Oh my goodness. I've just immediately kind of like thinking about all those times when there's a meltdown going on and then just without any warning, it just all erupts. And then you're driving and then you and your partner start arguing.
Yes. Yeah.
Who reacts and all of that. It can go literally from 0 to 100 on a dysregulation perspective,
Exactly.
like so quickly.
Yeah. And usually on vacation, right?
Yeah.
And we're trying to have
Totally.
fun. So everyone be quiet till we get there.
Yeah. especially because we're all navigating if it's on vacation, like we're excited, but actually there's the fear, there's the unknown, we're out of our schedule,
Yes.
we haven't got access to food for the kids, when we know we can just kind of like feed them if they're hungry. There's all these outside stimulus. There's so many variables that, you get so excited about a holiday, and then actually the holiday comes and it takes about 4 days for everybody to settle
It
down.
does.
And our nervous, yeah. And I think that's important just to say, because, everyone kind of thinks, oh, other people are having such lovely, harmonious family
Yeah.
holidays. And, we've spent all year waiting and saving up and whatever. And then we go on this holiday and everyone's arguing and screaming at each other for the first 4 days. And that is often the reality with an ADHD family.
I love that you're already in tune with us because so the book is in
Mm,
two parts. In the first part, I talk about the window of
mm,
tolerance. Now, that's not an idea I created. That's an established idea, but I apply it to the ADHD person. So we have a window, and the window of tolerance is where you and I can act with ease. Like if someone says something, we're like, okay, that's fine, because our nervous system is within that window. Okay, yep, that's what you believe. That's fine. Or, yeah, that was a snarky little comment over there. I'm not really outside my window of tolerance. I'm just okay. Right? When you and I first got on, I wasn't in my window of tolerance. My dogs were behaving poorly. And I'm like, Kate,
mm.
I need a second for these dumb dogs. Right? I was still like, I was kind of edging up towards the top of my window, but it was still enough in my window of tolerance. I wasn't that flustered. When I came back, you said, are you okay? And that was a way to check in on my window of tolerance. And I'm like, yeah, I'm okay. I'm in my window of tolerance, just needed to deal with it. But above this window of tolerance is hyper arousal. And hyper arousal is where a lot of people go. So let's say you have a child melting down, and then you go into, all right, how do we shut this down? The child's in hyperarousal, you're going to join the child. And so hyperarousal is this physical sense, the nervous system, where we get worked up and we're in fight or flight. And our brain is scanning. Children go into hyperarousal. We all go into hyperarousal. Now, what's interesting is below the window is hypoarousal. And I also see a lot of that in families. The kid who just wants to lay on the couch and be on his phone, right? A lot of people will say to me, I don't know what I did today. I just felt sluggish. I'm like, oh, it sounds like to me that you were in hypoarousal. And those of us with ADHD, we have a narrow window of tolerance. And if you notice, like, I don't know what went wrong yesterday, but I actually swore. And my daughter's like, oh, you do not need to use that language. Well, she doesn't have ADHD, and it was a minor inconvenience. And with my little window of tolerance, like that minor inconvenience pushed me into
Yeah.
hyperarousal. Now, I was able to come back down into my window. It's fine. But something that I do is I work with people to help them widen their window of
Yeah.
tolerance. This isn't about resilience. Resilience is just kind of taking the hits. Window of tolerance is my body's regulated. I'm okay.
Yeah. I love the concept of the window of tolerance. I've done this as well. I taught a polyvagal theory workshop and understanding it through the lens of ADHD. And it's been, for me, understanding these kind of concepts, but the window of tolerance is definitely something ADHD people should be aware of and understand it so beautifully how you just described it. Because when we understand what a window of tolerance is, we can implement certain
Yep.
lifestyle tools, well-being tools to help us kind
Yes.
of expand it and keep it in that area that feels good to us. And so, I mean, I don't know if you'd agree, but I'm going to say personally for me, my window of tolerance can be much smaller if I've had a crazy day, back-to-back meetings, not had proper time for lunch, not exercised. Then I go and pick my kids up. One of my kids is like back chatting and moaning,
Yep.
and I've made dinner and they go, I don't want to eat that. And all of a sudden I'll snap. And my
Yeah.
window of tolerance is like really small after a
Yep.
day.
Throughout the day, it just
Yeah,
compressed,
yeah.
right?
But then
Yeah.
I know if I've managed my diary better and I've had time to maybe take my dog out for a walk before I pick my kids up,
Yeah.
just have a bit of time away from computer, phone, all of that, have some space to breathe. And I pick my kids up, I feel a bit more re-energized and refreshed. Even if they behave like that, I know that I will have more patience and I'll just know not to react to their, and I can kind of co-regulate the situation. And I think with ADHD, it's so powerful to understand this concept. And I'm so glad, that you're talking about this. What other ways can people with ADHD really bring this into kind of like a practical mode with window of tolerance?
Yeah. So yeah, the first part of the book kind of sets up. Well, you actually can answer this question even better than I because you do the polyvagal work. So you know that there's ways if you're in hypoarousal, that's below the window. I know you know this, but just to remind your listeners, that's below the window. So hypo is like you're without arousal, meaning without any impetus to do anything. Then you do things to create more energy. You could always do breath work. You could walk around. You could even do just 10 jumping jacks. Anything to alert. I don't know about you, but I use the Wayne Cook posture to get
Mm.
out of hypoarousal.
No, I don't know
I don't
that.
know.
What is that?
Wayne Cook, this isn't a new and sexy thing. I think he's like in the 50s or 60s. He worked with people who are stuttering, and he was one of the first bilateral people to propose like brain bilateral work. And for me, it has just really helped. So now that I say it, I'm not sure how to explain this to your listeners, but it's when you cross your hands and you fold them in front of yourself, um, so that your hands are crossed in front. Did that make sense how I said that? And then you also cross your feet and you stand in that posture and you straighten up and you take a deep breath. And then you switch, you cross your arms again, you pull them through to your chest. And listeners, if I'm not making sense, just look up the Wayne Cook posture.
Yeah.
There's also a seating way too. But even that simple posture for me can bring me out of hypoarousal. So there's so many things that can bring us out. It doesn't even have to be, I have to do something quickly. It can just be as simple as doing the Wayne Cook. So hyperarousal, and you know this from all your work with polyvagal, is okay, I'm outside the window. I need to actually bring my body down. Again, I can do it with breath work. I have to somehow convince my nervous system that not in danger right now.
Yeah, I think it's sometimes we have to recognize that, like, we just have to send ourselves a bit of love and forgiveness. But it's the awareness, isn't it? Of like, now you kind of go,
Right,
okay,
right.
instead of being constantly in this reactive mode and not really understanding what those triggers are or like working back. Like, I'll go back to say my
Yeah,
example of that day of like back to
right.
back, crazy, not enough time to eat, drink, walk, breathe, like all those things. If I haven't got awareness and then I pick my kids up and then they're shouting and da da da, and that's just like a daily event, then that's going to be chaotic for the whole family. And I mentioned the word co-regulation, which is again, we talk about with the nervous system and everything. And when I recognized, I understood co-regulation, which means that, and forgive me if I'm sort of like, simplifying it too much, but it's when an adult is the calm, the safe, the capable, kind of reliable one, bringing sort of like an energy to the family. So the family and the children then kind of feed off that energy. Whereas if we were the parent that just brings shouting and all sorts of other chaotic emotions and behaviors and up and down moods and all of that, then that's going to have an impact on all the nervous systems in the house.
Yes. Can I share the metaphor that I use in the book
Absolutely.
about this?
Yeah.
Because this is exactly so, you said I apologize if I'm oversimplifying this. I'm like, well, wait till she hears this metaphor because this oversimplifies it. But I wanted to give my readers an idea and a metaphor for this, and a metaphor that they could work with in their family. So I said, imagine a pool. And the pool is where all your big emotions are. Your deep emotions are in this pool. Joy, deep sadness, deep anger. They're all in this pool. Now, the pool is not a bad place, but it's intense emotion. Do we want to go in there all the time for that? Is that good? Right? Those of us with ADHD, and I love how you talk about your ADHD, we don't have a lifeguard on duty, and we don't have a fence around our pool. So we go through our day, la, 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 and sometimes we're like, whoa, and we fall into our pool. And then what happens next is very important. Am I going to splash other people, pull other people into my pool? In families, sometimes there's that brother who will walk by his sister and just push her in the pool, metaphorically or physically, sometimes even. And so it's a way to look at ourselves and what we're doing. Now, once you're in the pool, I teach families, it is your responsibility and your responsibility alone to get out of the pool. And so really, if you can't say, so-and-so pushed me in the pool. Well, honey, why were you so close to the pool? Of course he's going to try to push you in the pool. Okay. And, I'll deal with brother, but I don't want you to not take responsibility. Like, you fell into the pool. And so falling into the pool is our responsibility. And then we need to learn what to do. We need to learn to swim to the side. Do we need to get like a flotation device? We call them noodles, those, I don't know if you guys have those foam noodles. Do you need to get a noodle to float on for a second and just feel the emotion? You need to swim to the other side. And then when you get out, that's when you do the debrief. That's when you make amends. So if it's a parent with a child, you would help the child understand the pool story. Like, hey, we got to walk through the pool story. What happened? How did you get into that pool? Not why, how, what happened? What could have happened instead? How'd you get yourself out of the pool? Because that's good. That's worth talking about. Well, now what do we know about the pool that we didn't know before? And so that's the pool. And so with adults, you're saying like, listen, I'm already metaphorically in the pool. I'm picking up my kids. They're talking and I'm just like doing the backstroke in my own pool right now. Or maybe you're saying my toes are just curled over the edge because I could fall in any second. And so knowing our proximity to the pool is very important for families.
Yeah, I think it's a brilliant analogy. And I love all your analogies. That's like, for me, simplification is my kind of go-to, because I'm not a scientist and I'm not a doctor and I'm not a therapist. I just like to be able to understand everything in the most practical way to apply it to daily situations, because that's all we're doing. We're just literally, it's like we're trying to get through the day. And we're also now being, I specifically deal with women who are mostly been diagnosed later on in life, who are gaining this understanding finally of their brains, and who are finally understanding that they're not broken, and they are wanting to be able to make amends and also break family cycles and look back at the way they were parented and how maybe they were treated and spoke to themselves, and all these different kind of like mixes of lots of emotions and sadness and all of that. And they are wanting to make big changes so they can live and thrive and actually sort of work with their brain and no longer be kind of totally derailed by it. So I think that this pool analogy is fantastic. So during this brilliant episode with Dr. Tamara Rosier, you may hear us talking about different nervous system modalities, such as polyvagal theory, co-regulation, window of tolerance. And if you are intrigued and curious to learn more, I have some fantastic resources on my website. I have the Regulating Your ADHD Nervous System course, which is based on polyvagal theory, and it's really fantastic. It's had amazing reviews. That's all on my website. Or if you're just looking for maybe a shorter workshop, I have something called Managing Your Nervous System with ADHD, which is a one-off workshop for 1 hour. Head to my show notes. I'm going to link to both of them, and you can learn more about how to regulate your ADHD nervous system. Thank you, Dr. Tamara. This is an amazing episode. Let's hear more of it. I also wanted to ask you what you said earlier on about the beginning of your book, and it has to be about we have to take responsibility for ourselves. We have to work on ourselves. And actually, it's a bit of I wouldn't know if it's a taboo subject, but I really believe in this. I think we have to take responsibility. I think that, yes, we can discover we've got ADHD and we can be like, oh my goodness, why, how did I get through life and no one, told me about it. I've been misdiagnosed. All this awful internal dialogue, and I've had the external criticism and all of this. And there can be very much a woe is me, victim-like mentality, which I think is okay for a little while to sit in. But I am a big believer that we do have to take responsibility. We have to make changes and work on self-development, evolution, and have a growth mindset. Because I also know a lot of people who sadly just have this very rigid, stuck mindset and go, oh, you're reading another self-development book. Oh, you're doing another course. Just get over it type thing. And I wondered what you thought about that. Like when we find out we've got ADHD, working on ourselves.
So there's a process, right? And I love the work you do with women because, a lot of the women come to you, go, what could I have done in my life had I known this? So we have to give them that grieving period. They're grieving. And I love that you give that space for them. That's okay. And then there's also time to go, all right, I'm going to own my space. And by the way, guys, I'm late to this game. I am 56 years old at the time of this recording, and I'm still learning all this.
Yeah,
so when I talk, please don't think I have anything together. Okay.
Likewise.
This book was challenging for me to write and convicting for me to write. But I do want to be the kind of person who owns her own energy. And whether I like it or not, if I walk into the room and I have a sour attitude, that will rub off on other people. Now I can go, well, it shouldn't. Well, too bad. That's how humans are made. So I need to take responsibility. A lot of ADHD people, we have emotional dysregulation. And so sometimes we can sour on a day. We're like, this day just is horrible. Well, okay, but part taking responsibility is that will affect people around me. And that's okay. That doesn't mean you have to pretend to be happy. I'm not talking about inauthenticity. I'm saying put yourself in timeout then. Do something to help you. I think you use emotional freedom tapping too. I'll do that. I'll do other things because I know sometimes I'm not good for people. And sometimes I'll just say, hey, I'm in a hard space right now. This is kind of your warning. And not warning like I'm going to hurt you, but just I want you to understand where I am. I'm kind of not great right now, but that's still me taking responsibility. And I love when people take responsibility in whole families, because what tends to happen in families is we just create all kinds of scapegoats, and we create in and out groups. We create everything like that. So if we can get people in families taking appropriate response for each other, which kind of brings me to another term, overfunctioning and underfunctioning.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure you've heard of these terms.
I'd love you to explain it even more for the listeners.
Yeah. Overfunctioning is when we do things for other people that they can really do for themselves. Underfunctioning is when we're not doing things for ourselves that we could be doing for ourselves. And so wherever there's an underfunctioner, a lot of times you'll see the overfunctioner. Now that I say that, can you think of examples that you've seen personally?
Yeah. I mean, I'm just wondering if you see this example with maybe a non-ADHD parent or a non-ADHD partner with an ADHD partner.
Ah, yes. Classic, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And so this is how this plays out. Let's just pick on a wife who has ADHD and a husband, they both work, And the husband's like, why aren't you holding your own? Like, you should be doing this. We agreed you'd cook dinner on these days. And the wife's like, I just came home from work so exhausted. I just went to bed. And the husband's like, fine, I'll pick up the slack. Now, this is in relationships, we want to pick up the slack for each other, right? We want to have that kind, loving, but it's the pattern of I'm always picking up the slack for you, right? And so then we have husband over functioning. And then the wife's kind of like, well, this kind of feels good. I'm going to keep under functioning because this is working for me. And you see this dynamic everywhere. And so, when I coach parents, when I coach adult children working with their parents, I'm always saying, don't do for someone what they're able to do for themselves. And they look at me like, I am the meanest person on earth. And they're like, well, can I bring them a glass of water if they ask me to? I'm like, I'm going to let you decide that. But if it's part of a big pattern where you're doing things for them that they are able to do for themselves, that's called overfunction.
I mean, I see this potentially happening. So my son has just turned 19 and he's just gone to university. And I've been fretting about this. He's also got ADHD and he is brilliant in so many ways. But where he really struggles is his executive functioning and organization and timekeeping. And so as a mum who understands him and his brain and sees his ADHD and where it shows up, I'm worried. I'm nervous about him going to university and having to manage his own time, manage his bedroom, his washing, keeping everything kind of
Feeding
organized.
himself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All of that, making sure he's actually going to classes and all of this. And I think he's going to be okay. But it's probably better that I don't know all the details and he's going to have to figure it out. Whereas my husband beforehand would go into his room and tidy his room, and he would go and pick up his dirty clothes and put them in the washing machine and change his towels and things like that, and remind him about his car, MOT and insurance and all different things like that. And part of me knows he's doing that because he's a great dad and he is helping. But then the part of me that kind of understands the bigger picture is fearful that he is over functioning too much. So his independence and so for him to be able to learn to do the things himself, he can step up to the game a little bit. But I feel that there's quite a lot of this fear with parents whose older kids leave home and we've kind of been holding fort for them. And then they leave home and we are maybe projecting our family trauma where we've seen people not make it and people really struggle and they've not made much and they've not lived up to their potentials. And we're so worried about our kids then that happening. So we kind of facilitate the whole thing. And I wondered if you had any words of wisdom on that.
Oh boy. Yes. Well, and I know you know this, but to remind your listeners, ADHD people mature at a different rate. So it's about 3 years behind. However, when people get into their 20s, sometimes I see the lag almost like a 5-year lag. And so let's see how this works out, right? You have a 20-year-old and he's actually acting more like a 15-year-old, but he's supposed to be at university. And so parents are like, what is happening? And so they get angry. They start to overfunction. They call him every day. They start to manage from afar. So it's true. Your child may not have the appropriate executive functions yet, but that doesn't mean we have to do it for them. So I introduced the concept, and again, this is a concept that has been around, of rescue versus mastery. Okay? Instead of rescuing, that's what overfunctioning is, we want to teach our children to master. And I want to say master like in air quotes, guys, because your ADHD adolescent isn't going to be able to master anything yet. They're still learning. They haven't been on this earth that long, and they have a brain that's a little clunky when it comes to executive functions. So we're going to give them grace. If they don't do the laundry at college the way we think it should be done, folded, put away properly, it's done and it stays in the basket. Let's call that a win. Okay? Because we're going to keep the picture on the big stuff. So in the book, I remind parents to go always, number one is look out for the relationship. So you want a great relationship with your son that will last a lifetime. You managing from afar is not going to get that relationship. So you want to really work on relationship building during this time. You live in a country where he's safe enough, he can figure this out. And you're going to put up guardrails. Like you're not going to give him free range to a credit card if he has problems spending money, right? You're not going to say you have all the resources. I have a client whose parents just throw money at him. And he spent over $10,000 on a party for his friends.
Wow.
Yeah. But they're mad at him because he's not doing well at school. And I'm like, how much time did this party take to plan? Do you get what I'm saying? It's like, put up the appropriate guardrails, right?
Yeah.
Not as punishment, guardrails. And then walk with your child. In other words, hey, are you having problems doing laundry? Do you want to talk about it? Mom, I got it. Okay. Just an offer, dear.
Yeah.
Now, some brilliant kids will go, yeah, I am having a problem with laundry, Mom. And I just wish you could come here and do it for me. It's some moms like, they're like,
Jump in the car.
I'm in the car. Now you have an overfunctioner working on the overfunctioner.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm working on all of this. I mean, he's only been in university for 4 days, to be fair. So yeah, we dropped him at the weekend, and I had to tell my husband actually, because he wanted to organize his room kind of for him, and I said he needs to be able to put all his stuff away and put, and if I'm honest, looking back, we probably did a little more than we needed to, but I think we were both a little bit anxious that if we left him with this huge pile of clothes and boxes, that would probably overwhelm him. And I could see that he was, even though he was excited, that he was also a bit jittery.
Absolutely.
And there was a bit of anxiety there. And so we just wanted him to feel like settled. So between us, we did it. And I feel better that I've left him in a room where he knows where everything is, and everything's kind of like organized for now. And then it's up to him to, I hope, hopefully keep some semblance of order.
Right.
And so, yeah, this is a new period, and I'm excited to read, your book properly so I can master some of this, because I don't want to overfunction.
2 things I heard from what your example is. One, he's your oldest, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he's what I call the first pancake. If you've ever made pancakes, you never know how the first one's going to turn out. Is the griddle too hot? Do I have all the ingredients just right? And the oldest kids, they have it the toughest. I was the oldest. I don't know about you, but I was the first pancake. Your son's the first pancake. Mm-hmm. This is your first time going off to college, right? Yeah. It has been 4 days. And you're like, this boy who I've lived with all of his life, and I've known him since moments after he was born, he's suddenly at college, and this is all scary. So I just want to respect the first pancake moment, that you've never been this far. And so you probably did a great job, and you did it with love. And you said, I can see we shouldn't leave you in a room just to unpack. Because that's, by the way, that's not even nice. He probably doesn't have the executive function skills or cares to do all that work. Mm-hmm. So very lovingly, you said, how about we help you on this one? Mm. And so again, that's not over functioning. That's, I don't want to, he's out in this new frontier. Mm. You brought your first pancake to university. And you're like, I'm back out of this griddle. I don't know if this is if it's the right temperature, the right ingredients, what if it's too watery,
Yeah.
right? And so I really encourage parents just to be kind to themselves. Doesn't sound like you overfunctioned one bit. It sounds like you were just present and supportive.
Yeah, I hope
And
so.
that's the goal. That's the goal, right? We want our kids to know they're loved and supported.
Yeah. And I think that's really powerful.
Yet they have to show up.
Yeah, I think that's really powerful because
Yeah.
I often get a lot of people say, asking lots of parenting questions and all of that. And I said, if in doubt, are you showing love? Are you showing compassion and empathy? Are you being present? Are you like talking to them every day? And are you giving them space to have their meltdowns and all of that and not judging them and putting shame on them? And said, if you're doing that, that's like 80% of the work. And everything else is fantastic. All your amazing practical strategies. That's just the layers on top, because so many, and I know you mentioned about your upbringing, so many people were brought up where there was all sorts going on, whether it was addiction, there was abuse, there was traumatic events, all because there was no understanding of neurodivergence, and there was no articulation. No one could talk about their emotions. Everything was suppressed. And so now we're in this place where, okay, now we're understanding, we're kind of getting, now that there's amazing people like you and centers and what you're doing and all your resources, and people are going, oh, okay, so that wasn't my fault. This isn't my fault. And like, I'm really excited about the future now,
Yeah.
because if there's the foundations of love are there, the foundations of
I so agree
deep
with you
care.
deeply.
Mm.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Please keep going on. I just
No.
so agree with
It,
you. Yeah.
then we can work out the rest.
That's
We can work that out.
that's exactly what I say. And that I hope that message is what comes through in the book. I mean,
I'm sure
yes,
it does.
we have to manage ourselves. We have to learn about our swimming pools. I have a whole chapter on the ADHD monkeys that live in our head. Like, we have to do all of this. At the end of the day, we have to learn to love each other better.
Mm.
And I knew that when I had kids, I didn't have many role models. I was the first one among my friend group to have kids, so I didn't know how to do anything. I knew one
Yeah.
thing, my kids would not feel unloved. And I've screwed up so many times as a parent. And yet all my kids were at the launch last night. We had fun together. We love each other. We support each other. We're really here for each other. So I that's that's just the beautiful reason we have families. They're our first support networks.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I do want to say something to your listeners who might be listening and go, I have a really crappy family.
Yeah.
And I want you to know, like, I understand that. And I have felt that too. But you can still make a family. You can have chosen families. So let's
Mm.
say your family of origin is just not good for you. You're unattached, you don't have children, you still don't have to be alone. You can make a chosen family. And you can invest and deeply love people who want that same kind of relationship with you. So I just want to encourage people, even if you got dealt the short stick, I don't know if that's the saying, but
Yeah, that's it.
yeah, you can still do this.
I think that's a really powerful caveat, because, like you say, and I think often we're heard and we're told, blood's thicker than water, and no matter what. And interesting, I had a client today whose, parents are, I would say, one of them is bordering on narcissistic, and there's lots of parentification going on, and it's just really not healthy. And there's a lack of boundaries and everything. And I said to her that you don't have to be at their beck and call. Like, that's okay. You are allowed to make your own life and your own family, and you don't have to be part of this family, all the time. And what you said then about being the first I was the same. I had kids really young. I was 25 and none of my friends were having babies.
Yeah.
But that was the same mantra. It was, I kind of want to do things differently to where I was parented and how my family was, because I know that I was loved, but it wasn't the best environment to be brought up in. And I wanted to make a difference. And so, like I was the same, I was just totally clueless. But all I knew is as long as I just love my kids, hopefully all the mistakes I was going to make won't be too terrible.
Love covers all. And that's, I just think it's so powerful. And I love that you and I have similar stories. So sometimes people ask, do you hate your parents? And you know what? I don't. They're part of my story. They made me who I was. And I left that family of origin with a lot of scars and a lot of deep wounds. That's still in my 50s. I'm like, oh, whoopsies, there's a wound. But you know what? I have compassion for them. I write in the foreword that, my mom was a divorced woman in the 70s, trying to bring up 2 girls on her own. She was emotionally unregulated, and that damaged a lot of parts of me. But you know what? I don't think she would want to be like that to me. And so I have a lot of compassion. I don't have any relationships with either parent, but it's okay. And I'm saying this to your listener because some listeners might still be angry about it, and that's okay. That's a stage too. Just like when women find out that they have ADHD, we have to let the grief go through. Sometimes when children think about their families of origin, they're angry. It's okay. That's what you're going through right now. Yeah. Don't be afraid of it. And then on the other side of that is compassion.
Yeah. And also the fact that you have obviously invested so much of your emotional energy into being a parent and parenting and hopefully creating a dynamic where, like you say, your 4 kids, you're at your book launch and there's love there. I'm sure there's you drive each other a bit crazy sometimes as well, but there is always there's that deep love and respect there. And I think that's what everybody wants from their family. And, I think your book is going to be such a huge help to so many people who maybe don't have access to family therapy or counselling and like you say, we're also just have got deep wounds from their own family and don't want to carry those wounds on and, poison their new families with their sort of unhealed wounds. So I just want to thank you so much for all your work, Tamara. I think, you do such incredible work and so much help in the community of people processing and understanding their ADHD and then moving forward and thriving. And that's what we all deserve. So thank you.
Well, and thank you for the work you're doing. You're doing amazing work. And I hope you hear this with the heart I intended. I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
And proud of the work you've done and what you've started. And you're doing a great job.
Thank you. So. I really appreciate that. And if anybody wants to buy your book, your new book, You, Me and Our ADHD Family, it's available, I presume, everywhere.
Anywhere books are sold.
I just keep it super general and super easy.
Yep,
and
anywhere books are sold.
And the same with your other book as well. Your Brain's Not Broken. Same. And Tamara, I just wanted to say it's been amazing to have you back on the podcast. And I hope for all the other books that are going to be coming out, you'll come back and we can talk even more and share your knowledge. So thank you so much.
I'll come back anytime. You are always a joy to talk with.
I really hope you enjoyed this week's episode. If you did and it resonated with you, I would absolutely love it if you could share on your platforms or maybe leave a review and a rating wherever you listen to your podcasts. And please do check out my website, adhdwomenswellbeing.co.uk, for lots of free resources and paid for workshops. I'm uploading new things all the time and I would absolutely love to see you there. Take care and see you for the next episode.